Come on now, come on, record. There we go. Okay, and let's see. And then this is going to go, I'm going to go ahead and do this so I don't forget. But I'm a little bit ahead of the game, which kind of scares me. I'm never ahead of the game.
Yeah,
Okay.
you and Henry have been doing some work here, man.
Yeah, he's been really working it hard.
He's a good guy.
Putting new things together and making it, getting more vibe going. It's cool. Okay, I gotta make sure that I'm able to. Come on, alarm, go
Yeah, I
on.
really like that guy that was here last time too. This your sound guy.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
yeah.
I like that guy.
Okay, I know what's gonna happen here. And do you go by? Do you prefer Thomas or Tom?
Tomas, actually.
Tomas. Very good. Okay, get back where I was going. Turn on, and we're in. We're in business. Okay, and we should be rolling. We're behind the scenes here. I'm gonna bring up
You want to
a
tag
song.
me on Facebook?
You know what?
My guys too.
Get you're gonna have to show me how to do that because
Okay.
I'm not a good tagger.
Okay.
So well, I'll tag you once we get rolling here.
Okay.
Just a sec. Give me that. Let me get into this.
Go ahead.
We'll get into the show real quick and then we'll. Okay, we are ready. Now on this first, as we get going here, the first little bit of the show will be, I'll just be my intro, and I'll introduce you once we get through this first song. Okay, Tomas?
Okay.
Okay, we are going to have a great show, and we are 44 seconds away from kicking in to Conscious Conversations. This is my guest, Tomas Hernandez, and we're just gonna. I got to have Tomas on one other time with Michael Hornbuckle early on in the early stages of Conscious Conversations. I hope by the time we're at the end of the show, Tomas will say, "Hey, man, you've really improved." So at least that's what we're shooting for. But other than that, we're going to let the Holy Spirit guide us tonight into conversations about recovery. So here we go.
Okay. All right.
And welcome to Conscious Conversations on KUHSdenver.com, broadcasting worldwide from the Mile High City of Denver, Colorado. It's Sunday night, January 14th, 2018, and I'm your host, Stephen Ray Watts. You know, I thought I would have a hard time getting used to saying 2018, but you know, it seems like it's just come really naturally this year. Like it was just meant to be that we're already into it, and it already feels natural to be into 2018. So we're just gonna go with it. If it feels good that way, we're just gonna ride that wave, as it were. I'm so incredibly delighted to be with you last hour Sunday nights and all time zones around the world. Sit back or do whatever you do on a Sunday night or Monday morning, wherever you may be, and where you might be logged on to Conscious Conversations or listening to the show. And get ready for some uplifting, thought-provoking, inspiring conversation. As always, plenty of music and hopefully some spiritual growth. That's right, some spiritual growth in just 2 hours. Over the next 2 hours, Conscious Conversations right here on KUHSdenver.com. Well, we like to start out the night with prayer, and I love it when we get to start out the night with worldwide prayer from places like Mexico, San Francisco, Plymouth, United States, Scarsdale, United States, Las Vegas, United States, Japan as well. You know what? I think it's a perfect night to say the long version of the Serenity Prayer. So, if you will, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as He did this sinful world as it is and not as I would have it, trusting that He will make all things right if I surrender to His will, that I might be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with Him forever in the next. Amen. Well, we're talking recovery tonight, and I think it's a perfect night to talk recovery. I guess for those of us in recovery, every night's a good night to talk recovery. It's one of those things that we feel passionately about, because I know it's somewhere in the what we call the big book. It says, why shouldn't we be joyous? Because we have been given, we have responded to recovery, and we've been given the power along with the Holy Spirit to help others. And that's really what it's all about. For those of us that have been afflicted with addictions of all kinds, given the power to help other people, that's something we take very, very seriously. And I know that my guest tonight does as well. My guest tonight is Mr. Tomas Hernandez. And I've had him on the show before. He's been on as a we've been talking about his participation as co-founder and EDVP of the Hornbuckle Foundation. We'll be talking about that. He was on with unbelievable musician Michael Hornbuckle early on in Conscious Conversations history, but he's got his own thing going on. He's the founder and owner of Tribe Sober Living and Reentry and Tribe Recovery Services, and soon to be launching Tribe Industries. Thank you, Henry. Henry logged in to say hi to Tomas. So,
hey, hello, Henry. Thank you for having me in your studio again. It's awesome
yeah,
here. Looks great.
So, but anyway, getting back to that, we're going to be talking about. We're gonna hear Tomas's. I got to get used to this because he asked me
too.
to say Tomas, but we're going to hear his story, and we're going to hear about his ventures in sober living. I'm really curious about reentry into society and into places of sobriety. Organizations, there's so many organizations. It's not just one way to get sober and stay sober, and that's one of the greatest gifts I've been given in sobriety, is to learn that there's no wrong way. The only way is to, Jake Lawyer just logged in. Hey, Jake. So we're gonna get right to it in just a minute, and I have a feeling this is going to be a great night with Tomas Hernandez, and right here on Conscious Conversations. Okay, you're going to be live now.
Is this me here?
Yeah. See, you're thinking that I don't know that I'm talking over the music, but I am. I do know that. So I'm just trying to segue it in. How's that for little artistic stuff here? Trying to get better every week. Welcome to Conscious Conversations. My name is Stephen Ray Watts, and I'm so delighted to be with you last hour Sunday night. It is Sunday night, January 14th, 2018, and I'm here. I'm delighted to have Tomas Hernandez in studio with me tonight. We're talking recovery, and Tomas is one of those guys that if you meet him once, you have an instant friend that you feel comfortable being around, hanging out with, just being a pal with. The first time you meet him, how do you do that? That's an incredible gift.
That wasn't always the case, but recovery kind of gave me more than gave me a good outlook on life and accepting just for today and being appreciative of where I'm at. Sometimes I fall short with that, and I don't know. I want to be in life and be involved and treat people the way that I deserve to be treated myself. So I just kind of like try to be involved with the people that are in front of me and just be the most positive and proactive person that I can possibly be on a day-to-day basis, within my power, so to speak. So,
Yeah. Well, and Tomas, it's one of those things where you can sense um, gratitude in people, and that gratitude, in my opinion, is one of the things that opens up a person's heart to the Holy Spirit, opens up a person's heart to the power that allows you to feel thanksgiving, thankfulness, and be able to help other people,
mm-hmm.
and be just be an influence on them just by being around them,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be, we talk, we introed the show as starting out about talking about recovery, and that's what I want to focus on. But people like that, people like you, who have found that gratitude and have found that idea of wanting to give back, wanting to be involved. It's not only with people in recovery; it's with everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, recovery teaches us that it's we're all on a level playing ground, and the biggest thing that it taught me was I'm no different than the next person. I got to just be happy that I'm breathing today. It's um, Everybody has their defects. Everybody has they fall short in some way, and that's whether you believe or not. Whether it's from the Bible to a moral compass to just common sense that you know um, the blinders are off. My eyes have been cleared, and you know to answer that in short, every second counts. Because I wasted a lot of them, so to speak.
Well, I mean, but you can see that. You can see that. I mean, I was like, that's part of it. That the whole part of you're the kind of guy I just like being around, and I hang in because you just have that feeling of making people feel comfortable around you, and um, that's just a really great deal. Um, can you see who's?
Yes, sir. David, thank you, man. I love that guy. He was one of the first people I ever coached. Real iron worker type of guy, concrete guy. Yeah, yeah. It was a great experience having that man around. I got to see. And that's what's great about recovery, working with people in recovery. You see people from all walks of life. Everybody knows that I've worked with musicians and pro athletes and all these type of things. But then you get to actually see different age group, just different sect, races, um, religions, no religions.
Yeah.
and you got to meet them where they're at, you know. And if you're one track minded and you think that you have the recipe for success,
Yeah.
it's gonna you're
Yes.
gonna find out how unsuccessful you are in this industry. And you know, the first couple of years, I kind of had that complex. I was kind of this therapeutic community guy that had this strict to this rule, this and that. And I get like that every now and then because you know
Yeah.
a little bit of the institution comes out of me, a little bit of that, you know, overbearing. You know, I told myself one day a long time ago I'd never be like my father and be that accountable and that straightforward. And I'm more like him than ever now, you know.
Yeah,
But
it's gonna get worse too, because
exactly.
I look, so there's funny times where I look, and I'm 55, and I think almost on a daily basis, and my dad's been gone about 3 years now, and I'm going like, oh dude, that's just like your dad, you know.
Hmm.
And I get it, but you know the thing about it is, you know, some of that is good, that you know, that it's I don't know if it's too general of a thing to say tough love thing, but it's
Hmm.
just, it's good to have a focus that you can join in on. Um, oh, there's Annette Olivas. Hi Annette, thank you for logging in. Um, Tonight is a special night. She's my friend, and she also works in recovery as
Nice.
well, um, and out at the Haven. And
It was a great program.
yeah, you know, but it's one of those things where you get to meet. I had a guest on the show, Tomas, and I had done met with him beforehand, and we talked and stuff. But we got in right before the show, and he said, you know, I just thought I'd better mention this to you, that I'm an atheist. And I'm you know, I went like up, and I'm thinking, and all I did was is I immediately prayed. I said, Lord, help me to communicate and be able to share my story along with his story, and help have that be able to be something that will inspire
Hmm.
and come from two different places.
Yeah.
And when you can do that, it breaks down barriers of any kind of judgment.
Hmm.
And if we learn how to break down those barriers, we can, then we begin to take this easy step of being able to all live together.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, when I see somebody that tells me, you know, making a choice of what they want to do, I mean, I come from a heavy Catholic background. You know, it's like I don't know if too many people have had the experience to walk into like a Catholic store. If you really like look at what's happening, there's swords and guilt and blood and guts
Yes,
and
yes.
prayer and tears and everything, but it's all comes from, you know, it's an approach that also, I mean, I've done like Lakota ways in prison and in prayer circles. I've watched so many different types of religions. I wanted to find myself and stuff like that. But 12 Steps teaches spirituality. And down to the bottom of how I strip it down, it's always just about um, it's a conversation, a positive, proactive conversation. Whether you call it God or whether you call it yourself, whether it's whatever, it's still a conversation and it takes the power from you having.
Mm,
If you know, if we're
yeah.
keeping it positive and proactive and keeping it that simple, you know, I'm a God guy. I'm sold on it. I mean, there's nobody else that would have came to my aid when I needed it, especially inside mentally. I mean, nobody could just jump in my mind and start driving it around, and especially me.
Hmm.
You know, I start driving my own
Oh,
thoughts around.
yeah.
We're gonna have some situations I'm gonna have to apologize about in the morning.
Well, I
But
mean, so that brings up like a huge word that we talk about in recovery, is surrender. How does a person uh, get broken down, either broken down to that point, or maybe even they even get reasoned down to the part of where they're able to surrender, or how was it for you?
I don't know. I just kind of had to look at it for what it was because you know, first the biggest thing that I put a post the other day was talking about you know, and it talks about the possibility to restore ourselves to sanity, second step.
Yeah.
And I was looking, you know, sanity. Wow, because my insane thinking had me just all over the map.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from thinking that very close loved ones were law enforcement to, you know, untrustworthy things for the people that had my back that were my enemy, and the people that didn't have any of my best interest in mind were my best friends in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you know, to surrender is a I do that on a daily basis. 12 steps that I do is on a daily basis. I might do all 12 in one day.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
You know, surrender to me is I had to look at it like this. I surrendered to the pipe. I surrendered to the needle. I surrendered to the gun. I surrendered to the judge every time that I was sitting in front of him or her. I surrendered to the prison sentence. I surrendered to being a doormat to my family because of the, you know, the choices that I made. I knew surrender very well. But what the trick was to have the courage and the stones to surrender to something positive that I didn't trust. I always knew that there was a God. It just, for a long time in my life, I didn't like it because I didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was at the window shopping. You know, in the culture that I'm around with, it's you're either with God in the church or you're in the garage or the basement screwing up, or you're with the elders or you're with the cousins and you want to fit in. There was no in between. There was no 12 step.
Right.
You know, my cousin was the first 12 stepper in our family, and if I didn't see him do it, which he, you know, by the grace of God and one day at a time, he's still doing it, and we're still in great contact. If I didn't actually see my own blood doing it, I don't know if I'd be sitting here today.
Wow.
You know, and it's.
But that's the power.
Yeah.
And that has to be, you can call, to me, that's the power of the Holy Spirit working. That's God working.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we've got just a couple of minutes before we get onto our first music segment. I'm so delighted and privileged and honored to have not only my special guest, but I consider him a good friend. And when you're able to say that after having met a person and really had a chance to speak with them maybe 3 times, there's something going on there. You have to look at that. That means it's like a kindred spirit thing that that I agree. I agree in that God is good. But that kindred spirit thing goes a long way. And when we have something in common, like recovery, no matter where our stories are, what differences that we have, you know, we can relate to each other in that way. We briefly before we get to our first, wanted to have you talk about. We're going to have Tomas tell us about his story, but tell me, just give me a little bit of a brief once over about Tribe Recovery Services and your three-pronged approach here.
Okay, so Tribe Recovery Services has been going on for a long time. You know, you mentioned Tanya Wheeler and her crew. I've been bugging everybody about me being in the industry since I had like $2 in a flip phone. I was going to go ahead. I was going to put it together. You know,
I love it.
The Bam Bam Bigelow of recovery, flame tattoos on my head. I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna save the world. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I've been kind of an entrepreneur type of person, individual all my life, even through my active addiction and stuff. And I just, you know, the first 2 years I had to learn the industry, and I moved around, and I was blessed enough to get on the national level and find some good people, and you know, in that situation, you know, a lot of growth has happened, and I decided through a individual, a mentor, you know, look up to very much. His name is Christopher Conway from the Stout Street Foundation, was also a key component just to start doing things. He got me in the industry along with Tanya Wheeler and Tamara Kraus and a few other people. Ben Court has been a huge person in my life through, I mean, all the way through the United States. You know, even conversation with Christopher Kerr Thomas out in Memphis and people out in LA, you know, all over the place have been a huge support to kind of make this whole kiosk. So Tribe Recovery Services started as, you know, I'm sitting in Christopher's office because I'm trying to pay for my IOP. You know, my parents started it off good. You know, I got good parents. I came from
Mm-hmm.
good people, but you know, the level of care I needed, and I I didn't even have Medicaid at the time. So,
Right.
you know, I'm working for the guy. I'm doing UAs and running the front desk and all this kind of stuff. So I decided to make this business card. Right, it's real cheesy. It was like this guy standing on this rock, majestic. It was a Vistaprint card, and I'm a Raiders fan, but just to sell it, I was desperate to start a business. I put it in Bronco colors. I had one blue side and one orange side.
And yes,
So
it's
it,
smart, dude.
so it pop. You know what I mean? And
I love it.
I put a quote. You know, I was still struggling with the God thing, so I put, uh, uh, and God. Let me clarify that it was a God thing then. Now it's a way of life, and it's in my heart, and I've accepted that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it was a God thing, I was kind of on the fence. So I used a quote by Marcus Aurelius, and it's on my Facebook thing. It's there's no sense of sitting around talking about what a good man is. Just be one.
Oh,
Simple as that.
yeah.
So I put a national recovery coach, national recovery advocate. I put, and then I
Uh-huh.
put different small services that you didn't need a license for on this card. Right?
Oh,
And I've been one time with Tanya and AFR to Texas, so now I'm national, right? I know I made it to the national level because even parole I couldn't leave the Denver metro area, so I've been everywhere because I've been to Texas.
yeah.
So that's my little sales pitch with my Bronco card and all that stuff. And I started getting it out there. Christopher Conway started getting me to do interventions. This wasn't the type of interventions like you know.
Stephen Wilkins and
Yeah,
some other
well,
people. Yeah.
some great guys that
Yeah.
they put it down. They have the whole letters and all that
Right.
stuff.
Right.
I was like, he's from Yonkers, New York, and he has that. Hey, Tommy, he goes, why don't you just go ahead and go get this guy? Go get this guy over at Motel 6. He's smoking
Oh,
crack. Slap the crack pipe out of his hand and bring him to the facility.
wow.
You know what I mean? So I'm knocking, doing a courtesy check on a Motel 8, Motel 6, not even knowing, talking Bloods and Crips out of
Oh my
windows
gosh, you're 12
and
stepping.
doing yeah, and I'm doing all this stuff and I'm just bringing them in, and I didn't really want to help people at the beginning until it got the bug, but I got this
Sure.
card out and it started getting over to a national level. Then I found myself, in Boyle Heights. I found myself in New Jersey doing the same thing. Riviera Beach, Florida. Been down in the fifth wards
Oh
in
my
Houston
gosh.
and going for these hard cases. And what people don't really understand is, that's why my symbol is that screaming gorilla. You know, it's there's a lot to it. It says in our literature that we come in animalistic, animal-like. And I was thinking, it always resonated with me. What would be an animal? What would it be an animal that I'd represent that I'd resonate with? And it was the gorilla because I watched this. You ever seen that old school buffalo herd picture where it's in black and white and the herd just falling off the cliff
Hmm.
and they're following the leader of the thing.
Oh
They're
my
just falling
goodness.
off the cliff. And it resonated me as the addiction. I'm always following that gang leader, that dope sack, whatever, and I'm off the cliff. But a gorilla would come to the edge of that cliff and assess the situation. He would sit there and watch and gaze off the thing. He ain't gonna jump off of it.
Mm-mm.
He might climb down it, but he's
Yeah,
not gonna follow the
right.
rest of the herd and jump and kill himself off that cliff, and it had a sense of strength and everything. So Tribe Recovery Services was born off that. I was, talking with these kids, and the simple fact is, some of these kids that are lost out here with this heroin epidemic that we're facing right now in crisis, you got these kids in these bad neighborhoods around the United States of America, and they're basically begging to get in my car. By the time
So there it is a
yeah,
cry for help.
yeah, I mean, they're talking with their parents. Their parents send me down there in the airplane, and I go get them from whatever, trap house, motel, or whatever. But when I introduce myself and I talk to them, and they find out that there's help, there's not a lot of push and pull there.
Wow.
They're just as scared. They're human beings. They're just as
Sure.
scared. You in a dangerous situation. You're homeless and you're sitting there, and somebody finally came and got you. And I'm not coming in with a badge, and I'm not coming in with a suit and tie on and acting crazy
Thanks.
on things.
Eva just um Eva just logged in. Thank you, Eva, for coming in. I didn't mean to interrupt
Oh,
you.
go ahead. Go
But you know,
ahead.
the thing about it is,
Yeah.
you know, when you think about it, with an epidemic like heroin, and some of the things that are coming up, that
Uh-huh.
I mean, some of these things, like, you're addicted after one or two tries, and
Uh-huh.
a lot of people maybe didn't, they're not expecting to be an addict that quickly.
Hmm.
So I can see how there would be that cry for help, that saying, "Oh man, how did this happen to
Yeah.
me? You know, help me. I don't know what to do." Right?
Yeah. It's that foxhole prayer, and then you on the cuff, and then it's a funny thing about it. Interventions. Now I know how to do it, like Stephen Wilkins and Keith Bradley and all that stuff. I've had the proper training and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's the simple fact of meeting where they're at, not putting too much on it, not coming as a know-it-all, not coming as a badge, just being available. That's the biggest thing Christopher Conway taught me how to be, is to be available.
Mm-hmm.
I get a phone call, I'm on that plane. I might have upset somebody that I'm sitting with. I might be at dinner with somebody. I might be at my mom's birthday party, but I'm sure. I loved how my mom told me at one time. She was like, "Son, you just do what you have to do when it's coming to help people and you're doing God's work."
Mm.
So if it was at her birthday party or whatever, and I had to go help somebody, that takes present. I couldn't sit there and watching a movie when I got a guy struggling for holding on to a shred of his life down the street, because not all of us get that opportunity to do that. So I feel it's like my not only my civic duty, it's it's my duty to God for saving my butt.
Well,
You
dude, I
know.
mean, that's part of it. That's part of who you are, and that's one of the things that I love about you is I think that's part of your makeup, that makes what you do effective. Because when somebody, they may not know what you may have interrupted or come from, but they know that you're there now, and they see that is the handout, and that handout is
Mhm.
that moment of clarity can be such a quick little
Yeah.
thing to jump on.
Mhm.
It's such a powerful thing to be able to do what you do, and on a national level, that's huge. you know um, if lest we forget that, I know there's a person, uh, uh, friend, if you will, of mine, that just recently passed away,
Sorry.
and it was from alcoholism, and it makes you so sad and angry, because it didn't have to happen, and yet, there were hands, that did reach out, and not everybody uh, can respond, but everybody should be able to have that person that reaches out the hand. When we come back, we're going to be talking more with Tomas Hernandez, and talking more about tribal recovery services, sober living, and reentry. I'm very interested in the idea of reentry, and finding sobriety and services, even within places of incarceration. And we're going to hear more about his story. But before we do that, we've got some music coming up, and this is called Kansas Ballet Song on KUHS Denver.com. Okay, and we are clear from radio. So, and we're still live on. Awesome! What a great opening, man! And thanks everybody for interacting with us tonight. We've got a lot of people that are logged on and listening to Facebook. You got a lot of people that want to hear what you have to say, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on, because I know you have this way about expressing um, how you feel about recovery,
Mhm.
and it's not like, for instance, like we were just talking about, if one of those people, it's there's a relatability part here, because if one of those hands out that that is looking for help,
Mhm.
um, if they see somebody, um, well, they see somebody like me come up, and they might be thinking they're tripping or something, and say, "What's this dude gonna do to help me?" But if they see a guy they can relate to, that that has the right, that can relate to them within their language, and 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 where they've been possibly, that they can that gives them the themselves, to give themselves permission to say, help me, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'm not too much of the clean cut suit and tie guy, and
But would they respond to that? Do you think they'd respond to that, or do you think that'd freak them out?
I know a lot of good professionals that have a way about themselves that do, so I wouldn't necessarily knock it, but it has been my edge. It has been my calling card because majority of my closet is Dickie shirts and Dickie pants. Because you
Yeah.
know it's I'm a $20 slacks type of guy. I'm a $15 jeans type of guy. I'm not I still have shell toes shoes. I'm not that probably the most expensive thing on my body is the jewelry that I got out of my hat. So with that, just kind of removing those barriers coming in. I think the more of that whole situation is coming in. Mostly is like if somebody came at me with a suit and tie, would be like a cop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you got to say? Why you got that suit on in the middle of the night at this at the Radisson Inn
Yeah.
at the edge of town? Why are you here? That's
Yeah.
that's like you right there. It says police.
Yeah.
But if I show up, first they're probably thinking that I'm the connect.
Uh,
You know what I mean? I
yeah.
get them comfortable enough. We chip down those walls. It's not always been the exact science. I've lost a couple. In those 4 years, I have a good ratio. I haven't lost only, but when I said a couple, I mean a couple. I lost one at the airport, and one guy just wouldn't get in the car.
Mhm.
But out of hundreds, I've managed to be able to sit there long enough. And I'm the type of guy. I'm gonna sit with you until you get tired. One of us is gonna get tired.
I love
You
it.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if it's nice outside. I'll clip a cigar and
Just
we're just gonna kick it.
yeah.
You can nod off a couple times and take a nap. I'm still gonna be there. I'm gonna play with my phone and I'm gonna
Dude,
wait and wear you down and talk to you about recovery. And,
that's
you
there's
know,
there's angelic principles to that. It's just like this the idea. Okay, we'll do it your way. I'll be here when it's really inspiring to me. I've met a few people like you, Tomas, that have gotten into early recovery and gotten busy really quick. And I remember thinking in early sobriety, I'm thinking here, man, I don't want to be one of those old guys that's chasing around, these newbies and these young people, and because and then somewhere along the line, it flipped, and it was just like, who can I help? Who can I share and just and the thing was, it was one of those things where, and you mentioned it earlier, is about what your mother said about the importance of doing God's work. And it is God's work, because what I used to do is when people asked me to work with them and work with them on the steps, I would say, no way, dude. Your sobriety is way too important, and I don't want to mess it up. And then somewhere along the line, I realized somebody must have told me in one of the community recovery rooms. They said, dude, you can't mess it up, number one. And anything you do isn't you anyway. It's God working through you. And I finally said, and that was a bit of a surrender. So, well, so you now, how long have you been in Denver, Tomas?
I've been in Denver. I'm a native. I'm an A-town kid. I'm an Aurora affiliate.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's my home, born and bred. I've tried to live different places, even in the United States. I end up back here. It's just something I feel about Denver, about Aurora. It's just my home.
Yeah, yeah. And well, it's a great place. It's always been a wonderful place to grow up. It's changed. There's no doubt that it's changed. And there's many reasons. Part of it's just the natural progression of history, but in Colorado, we've, um, yeah, you had mentioned the other night about Ben Court's book,
Yeah,
Weed Inc., and I'm reading that right now, and I'm going like, it all adds up,
yeah.
you know, it all really adds up. Tell me a little bit more about your story, if you don't mind.
My story. Where do you want to begin? Like, addiction.
Well, just wherever you're comfortable, Tomas. I mean,
I mean,
that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, early addiction in my life. I took my first sips when I was 6. I was weekend drinking with my cousins and my sister and everybody by the time I was 8. I mean, actually experiencing my first hangover.
Oh my
You know, I
goodness.
was I was seasoned enough to, excuse me, to know how to package and bag things up and sniff it and watched it being shot and all that stuff by the time I was 12, 13, and I've tried it. I got on the violent end of things. I was in the kind of on the experimental side. I was more on the there was I cling to more of the gang member side. I was a confused kid, man. I was always hanging around with older people, having to prove myself. I did my first armed robbery at 14, um, and that just set me off. It set me off. It was the beginning of the end. I'm living double lives. Telling I had a little bit of a brain on my head, and
Can you see
kind of
that?
really, yeah. Nick is doing great, man. Nick is awesome. You should message him on Facebook. He's finally about to go to sentencing this week, David. So you should message him, man. He'd love to hear from you. Yeah, accountability. My early life, my early life was, like I said, there was no talk to recovery, and the crazy thing about it is my dad this year has 40 years clean and sober.
Oh my
He just,
goodness.
but he's old school.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, he did it with God. He did it with. He thinks that 12 steppers are whiners, and he didn't want to go in those rooms. But you
Wow.
know what? I found that there was a key to that. You know what? But now I sit back and I look at how he did things. He was always loving and kind to his family, so he had lived a proactive life. He
Hmm.
was a hardworking man in recovery, so he provided. He gave back to his community for the things that he's done. He created himself a higher power, and he kept himself with some type of self care. You know,
So he was following inherent 12 steps
yeah,
that he had
yeah,
somewhere within him.
absolutely. There's some people say that they can just stop and do it. It's not about willpower. Willpower is part of it, but you got to have a recipe of success. My father had, whether somebody told him because I wasn't there,
Right.
whether somebody taught him the situation, whatever he he figured out for himself. He's got 40 years clean, and it's not, so just like Sampa says, you're in recovery when you say you are.
Yeah.
And I do believe that. My early story was a lot of violence, a lot of death, a lot of, I came from the 90s, when gang banging
I
wasn't a
was going
full
to
time
ask you
job.
that. I was going to ask you if you
It's,
were in, because that was when it was
yeah,
really clicking around here.
yeah, yeah. You talking about people getting shot and, things coming, changing overnight. And I was right in the middle of it, right in the middle of the whole situation, threw myself totally in the middle of it. My parents got tired of it. They emancipated me in high school. I was still wanting to play football, and I was, doing homework in the middle of the snow in my car or at my girlfriend's house, and because I couldn't go upstairs where I was living, my homeboy house was just a studio apartment, and there was like 6 of us living there at the same time, and you ain't doing homework up there.
Oh
You're
my
you're
goodness.
you're
Just,
using and
yeah.
abusing and doing crazy stuff. So with that being said, homework fell wayside, and I ended up dropping out a couple times, getting expelled before it was all the bell finally rang, and you know I wake up the next moment I'm in I'm in an institution, then I wake up the next moment, I'm in a prison cell. And before you know it, I'm nationally affiliated and in a motorcycle club, and I got the feds watching me for real. It's not just something that I'm seeing from hindsight of a drug. It's
Oh,
this
this
they're
is,
there.
yeah, they're there.
It's live and in effect. You know, ruining everything I got. You know, my mom used to always have this thing. Another thing she used to tell me. I didn't talk to her for 16 years on a good conversation. She'd ask me, every time I'd ask her for some advice, because even arguing with my mom, I knew she was a very smart person, and she always had something. There was something that she was telling me, and she was telling me the answer. I didn't like it,
Right.
and she'd always say, "Thomas, have you talked to God today?" And that would infuriate me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm trying to talk to you, Mom. I'm trying to talk to you.
Yeah.
Leave him out of it. This, and that." And she goes, "No, I think you need to start there because I have nothing to offer you at that point if you don't understand what I'm saying."
Mm.
And it used to make me mad, and I'd cuss her name, and I'd cuss her out, and I'd cuss out my father. And my father was kind of like my enabler and all this stuff. So it put that wedge for and that's what's crazy about this disease is the people that are in your corner and the man upstairs that is trying to tell you, "Hey, I love you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna help you,"
Yeah.
is the one that you don't want any help with. But you feel somehow in your head there's something else that's going to help you,
Mm-hmm.
and you go out there abroad and you find out that it was all a lie. It was a freaking Budweiser commercial. It was because when you start tasting those real things, and you start having blood on your hands and actually experiencing these prison things, and from drugs giving you dual diagnosis symptoms of different things,
Mm-hmm.
and diagnoses and whatever, and you gotta at the end of the day, you just got all this wreckage in your life and loss and pain and trauma and man, I was in my 30s, man.
I was
Living,
gonna ask you
I was
what,
37
yeah,
years old, and
yeah.
I'm sitting in full of tattoos, and I never heard of a sober living. You know what I mean? I got kicked out of every situation in this last. If you guys think that I did a perfection thing to get here, no, none of it was perfection. If I would have told you exactly, if somebody would have told me what these last 4 years, 8 months would have had in store for me, I'd have just kept on getting loaded. You know what I mean? But what recovery has taught me is how to walk through the fire, how to walk through that and proactively.
Mm-hmm.
A bag in the bottle is never the answer. You know, you know, what's going to really bite me is that bag and bottle.
Yeah.
What's really going to bite me is breaking that law. A little discomfort, a little discontent. You know, one for certain thing I know I'm promised is one day I'm gonna die. It's just I can choose to how I live my life to get to that last thing.
Well, Tomas, the thing that just jumps out at me is like the people, like you're talking about, like your mom, and God and your dad, and when your mom was talking, they had the ability to see the real Tomas, and
Mhm.
and not the Tomas that it's just like prodigal. I consider myself the same way. And being able for our loving God, a mother, the love of a mother, a sibling, a father that can love in spite of love the person, disagree with how the choices they're making.
Mhm.
That's an amazing thing, and that has an influence.
Yeah, on that subject, in 12 steps, you have to do your amends. And finally, when I got to my amends, I had like 2 years of some change. And I finally had to sit down with my mother and do that amend. And I asked her a question that I've always wanted to ask her. And I've asked her before, but she just wasn't ready to answer it. And we didn't have enough life experience behind it. And I got to get to the psyche back of a mother dealing with it. My mother deals with my sister on a daily basis with her similar exact um, demons, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
to keep
Mm-hmm.
her anonymity and mine for the 37 years that I was doing it. I mean, if you think about it, 31 years. Did she really ever meet her boy? Because her boy was lost very young. In single digits. So
Mm.
when I asked her first, she said, stuff like, you know, at first I didn't want to believe it. Second, I didn't want it. I wanted to be the fixer. Then I found out I couldn't fix you. Then I wanted to try to pawn you off to somebody else to have them fix you. Then when I found out both of us couldn't fix you, I got in a depression.
Mm.
And then I decided to beg you and it didn't work. Then I got into anger and I wanted to hate you. But then you were my son and I couldn't hate you.
Mm.
Then all I was left with was boundaries and prayer.
Wow.
And one day all of a sudden out of the blue she said, you woke up. And she does attest to it as prayer.
Mm.
But through that whole 31 years of putting that woman through that, at times, there was some real unchoice things that my mother had to say to me.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't even want me on her street. I mean, I filled it up with police and problems and
All the while praying
and all
for
that
you.
stuff.
All
Yeah,
the while praying for
exactly.
a
Yelling
miracle.
at my dad for letting me. My dad was my enabler.
Mm-hmm.
Letting me in through the door. Meeting me down the street, whatever.
But and I don't mean to interrupt you, and
Yeah.
because we're going to go to radio here in just a minute. But one thing I want to make a point of, and something that's been kind of an epiphany for me this year in reading my Bible, and I hooked up a new Bible. It's called the New Life Recovery Bible, and I didn't think I would like it, but dude, you got to get this Bible. It is one of the most incredible things I've ever started in my life. Anyway, we'll talk more about it, but I just wanted to bring this up. We need to realize that even people all the way back. I mean, if whatever you believe, if you believe in the family, if you believe that God made us in His image, if you believe that God made man and woman and family, and well, there's been dysfunctional families from the very beginning. I mean, look at Adam and Eve. That was a dysfunctional family. I've been reading about Jacob and Jacob, who became Israel, the nation of Israel, the chosen nation, and yet the dysfunction from him to his wife to his 12 sons is just amazing. So what we have to realize here is that I think the point I'm trying to make is that God, our God, wants and does love us in spite of what we feel about ourselves and in spite of the mistakes we make, the bad choices.
Yeah, I came to this conclusion that this works for me is, the divine comedy in the whole thing is, not dysfunctional families. It's just explain up. That's just how we function as human beings.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
just
gonna have you
part of it.
put your. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We jumped in and I didn't get right with you from the beginning. I'm with my special guest this evening, Tomas Hernandez, and we're on KUHSDenver.com. Kind of jumped in after those commercials, but we're getting right back into our conversation. Tomas was telling us a little bit about his story, and it's very, very compelling. With having beginning the drinking at an early age, and then like you were talking about, getting into unfortunately being in like the height of when the gangs were like, I mean, they were big here in especially in the Mile High region. So I mean, and that is not going to run well with a family upbringing.
Yeah.
So you were emancipated and in high school.
Yeah. Basically, I came home one day, and that's why I go by Tomas. My father said, first, you got to stop going by Tom Hernandez. I'm Tom. And second, I'm tired of the cops calling here looking for you.
Uh,
Out of anger, one time in an argument, I went and got those papers. My dad kept them, and he gave them to me filled out, and he goes, here's your walking papers. So I went and turned them in, and I was my own dad at that point.
wow.
That was kind of the, she a lot of stuff that most kids I took as a championship ring. Like the first time I did that robbery, it was prone and it was provoked by an older gentleman that I knew, an ex-com seasoned vet. So instead of going home being scared because that day or that night, he told me it like this. He gave me a gun to look at, told me what we were about to do. I looked at the gun, and then before I knew it, I had a gun to my head.
Oh my
And
goodness.
telling me, you flinch once, we're going to go do this. You flinch once, I'm going to leave you dead where you stand. So we went up in there and we did what we did. And like a normal kid would go home and tell their auntie, uncle, mother, father, cop, whatever. I got praised by the circle of people, and I got that gun as a gift, and I got fed a lot of falsehoods and and yeah, I got my first taste of stripes, and I held on to that, like it was that I belonged somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
See, we talk about function, dysfunction in the United States, but is that's really our function? That's our way. And I come from a big family. On my dad's side, he comes from 14 kids.
Yeah.
So you can imagine how many cousins I have.
Oh,
And I have 14 aunties and uncles
yeah.
just on one side,
Yeah.
and we were not ashamed of making kids over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We stretch all the way from here to Southern California.
Yeah.
Crazy, and some are out east.
Uh-huh.
So it's like with that whole situation, it's there was a lot of stuff, and when we talk about those years in the '90s where you got a taste of that, it wasn't like all these kids are basically on the thing. They're talking about gang member stuff, but they're talking about junkie stuff. The rap songs that you hear today, they're just talking about getting blitzed off everything. You know, in my day, they're talking about committing real heinous crimes. And I'm just talking about I'll blast you.
Yeah.
They're giving it a detail on how they're doing it and consciously clear. Everybody talks about marijuana. Oh, that's a harmless drug.
Yeah.
A gangster, a typical gangster back in the day didn't do hardcore dope. They did some of them behind closed doors, but you were smoking a blunt, drinking a beer on your way to doing what you were doing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's different neighborhoods that have different beliefs on that whole situation.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing that I started with was alcohol and marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't, I tried it when I was 12, 13, but I wasn't a full blown junkie till I was, 18,
Mm-hmm.
19, and I was already well seasoned in everything that I was doing by that time, so I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, I kind of drifted off and drifting when I was driving right there, but, I just felt that, it's kind of relevant to what we were talking about because, yeah, yeah.
Dude, I mean, I so appreciate your honesty. I so appreciate because I mean, honestly, I feel I'm just gonna put it out there. It's just like, I haven't had to experience what you've experienced, and yet my alcoholism was every bit as desperate at the end, where I was gonna drink myself to death. So that disease of addiction has its way of customizing itself to whoever the person is. It doesn't talk about not being racist. It chooses everybody on an equal opportunity, and it will kill everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned that from, first I started in that free nonprofit world and I started working with, the population that I work with all the whole population now. I got a mixture from a seasoned ex-con to a kid that comes from Highland Ranch, and I mix them all together and teach them about recovery in my sober livings, but I noticed one thing. I was freaking out. I was going to work in this kind of bougie place out in Lone Tree, Colorado, and I'm tripping, I'm just going down the street from Aurora. I'm getting over towards Lone Tree and I'm freaking out. These people ain't gonna like me, this and that. I have nothing to resonate with the next person. And the biggest lesson that I got was it doesn't matter what's on your paintbrush, man, what kind of picture that you painted for yourself. Some things look, a little, you know, more entertaining than the next story. But still, like how you were saying, I agree with you. It's pain is pain,
Yeah.
discontent is discontent. And if you're feeling away, empty inside, and you're spiritually unfit, and you're spiritually empty, that's the major thing you got to focus on, not how you got there.
Yeah.
Because I'm no different than that little girl dying, working at a late night supermarket, putting that junk in her arm in the bathroom.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I work with the Harm Reduction Action Center. Shout out to them. I saw this paperwork the other day that she showed me. Man, it was showing the statistics of of our youth and everybody that's in our community dying in public places.
Oh my.
You know what I mean?
I can
Putting
tell
that
it's
needle in their arm for the last time. You know, even the trauma that happens to the people that are not doing the drug. You're just trying to make a buck, and you got to go clean the bathroom, and you find some kid or some man or woman dead inside you know, inside that restroom or back
yeah.
alleyway or whatever. So yeah, man, addiction ain't got no color, race, sex, creed. Just like our literature says, it wants you.
And
It's got its own timing.
yeah.
It's not on your time. It's on
Yeah.
its own. And,
And it is a killer, and you don't, and sometimes it's funny, Tomas. It was when I got to the community recovery rooms that yeah, I had been very, very sheltered from death my whole life, and I had not. And then all of a sudden, people that I cared about, um, both sober and those who couldn't respond to the program, um, there was death, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is something I'm not used to, and it really it brought it home. It brought it home to me in a way that was um, very unpleasant. But I like the fact that this makes the diversity is incredible from the people that you work with. I mean, we're talking, like you say, that the young people who are getting into these drugs are evolving,
uh,
and they're getting more addictive off the first hit or whatever, the first use.
mhm,
And then there's the guy that's getting out of incarceration.
mhm.
um, how do you switch gears?
I just keep a simple thing about it is if you're willing to get some recovery, let's look at your situation. Let me meet you where you're at. I had the unique blessing to keep my street cred. Not only that, have the push behind my back from Conway to go on my first courtroom doors with Wesley Hooks, to meet judges and attorneys, um, to having a divine intervention by God to place me in the same cigar shop with a man that helped put me in prison twice, and now is a very good friend of mine.
Wow.
You know what I mean? To a lot of different experiences. So I got to get my new life seasoned by a lot of different aspects. So to answer your question, it's basically I meet that person to where they're at.
Hmm.
I don't. It's not my idea of recovery. That's not what it's about. Because my idea is not going to work for this kid, this older gentleman or whatever. I got to be interested in a meeting where they're at, what
Ah,
they're willing to do. So
so
let's build on that, because the basic infrastructure is what you got to be able to give back to your community. You got to be coachable. You got to be willing to surrender, and you got to be able to want to take care of yourself. So I really focus. That's why I'm doing the Tribe Ministries. You got to be able to support yourself. Get out of your parents' pockets. Get
Mhm.
out of your family members, your wife, your husband's pockets. Learn how to support yourself and do recovery at the same time.
That's
Because
huge.
so with that whole spectrum, that's the main things that I concentrate on. There's certain populations that I can't mess with. If you're, you can't 12-step a murderer. You know, I don't. You
I
see
don't
them in
mean to
the
laugh.
rooms,
Yeah.
and me and Michael used to call it. It's called convict casino. Like, well, I'm going to trump your 90 days with my year I did in jail. Oh,
Mhm.
you did a year in jail. I'm going to do 7. I did 7 years, and they're
Yeah.
glorifying all this stuff. I strip all that stuff away.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't start talking about how many years that I did in jail, because that's nothing. That was how many years that I have to dig into in my recovery to fix myself, to be a productive person, to
Mhm.
be the father, the future husband, boyfriend that I'm going to be, the blessings that I have today. That's part of the package that I got to fix. That's
Mhm.
not something that I need to hold on to. So when I see these guys come in from jails and institutions, let's meet where they're at. Let's see where it's at, and let's continue what we got, and let's keep on building. You fall down, let's pick you up.
Mhm.
My sober living is a little bit different model. Of course, I'm going to send you to detox, and I'm going to keep the place safe. But if you come to me that you're drunk, you come to me that you're high, that you've messed up, I catch you on a UA, I'm not going to kick you out and turn over the cup on the
Right.
parents, on the government, or whatever, and cost them financial woes. Because financial woes, let's be honest about it. Little Johnny gets kicked out of 3 sober livings, just cost Karen and Ron and his parents 3,000 upwards of 6,000, $10,000 for that month,
Mhm.
because he's doing junky shit that a junkie. I'm sorry about my cussing. Junky
No.
stuff that
No.
a junkie does.
No. No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and support that. Have the willpower and the and the initiative, and be it available to meet them where they're at, and keep that pattern going. you know. And a lot of people disagree with me, and they're like, "Oh, you're going to get a label." And it's not about the label that I'm getting. I'm not trying to get statistics here. I'm trying to get progress and production done
Mhm.
with this kid that needs my help. Because I got a lot of kids that I work with that have fell down 50 million times in this last almost 5 years, but today they're doing great.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
That's
Because
yeah.
we got through that fog.
Yeah.
We got through those thorn bushes. The arrows were flying at us, and they're going to hit us because we don't know how to properly defend ourselves with spirituality, with a program of recovery, and how to walk down that path, right?
Tomas, if it was that easy, everybody would just snap their
Yeah.
fingers and it would be done. And it's just not. I mean, but addiction, when there's a reason the word is addiction. It's not being able to it's got its hold on us.
Mhm.
And it's in step work, having to surrender, saying, that I'm powerless. Being powerless over that drug, that drink, that whatever it is. And there's many reasons until we figure out what those reasons are
Mhm.
that are making us powerless, from
Mhm.
that drug or substance. Then we're always going to fall down. But when we do, then we have a chance.
Mhm.
There's that moment of clarity, and then there's progress, and with that comes sobriety.
Mhm.
But it's like, to me, it's like, I mean, what you're offering through your recovery services, sober living, and reentry, and the whole idea of what you're doing is it's giving people the opportunity not only to succeed
Mhm.
but be human.
Yeah, and with the courtrooms that I work with, you got your traditional courtrooms, and then you got all your Denver Metro recovery drug courts and recovery courts and wellness courts and veteran courts. And a big shout out to all those professionals out there. A big, very big shout out to my friend Amanda Myers
Mm-hmm.
and Judge McLean, Julie Veto, Jane, everybody, Christy, everybody in that crew over in the 18th district. Um, we are working together for the last year and some change right now to make a model that makes sense for that type of situation. Drug courts, you have a lot of levels, phase ups. They give people a chance at that relapse. They get all the treatment help that they need. They get vouchers. They get all these types of things. So one of the sober livings, like the one that me and Michael has,
Mm-hmm.
and then I also emulate the same practices in Tribe, is we try to stay out of the middle of what they got to do with the courtrooms. You know, you got enough rule of thumb. You know, this at you. You know, I'm just your guide, and I'm the person that provides a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not your boss. I'm
Right.
not your dad. You know what I mean? I'm your brother in recovery, trying to get you to see the direction you need to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, of course, there's rules or sanctions I could give you. I could work with the courtrooms, but I let the courtrooms decide. I'm the first sober living endeavor that actually lets them get internally involved, you know,
Wow.
and take their opinion. Because you know, if Judge McLean decides that that gentleman needs a week and you know needs a weekend in jail, I'm all for it. But they also back me at the same time if I decide to keep them. They ask me, "Are you going to keep my client?" And they thank me for it. If Amanda Myers needs me to, you know, take initiative in this place and take a perspective that she's talking about, I'm going to listen to what that woman's saying because you know what? One thing is I don't believe a drug addict or an alcoholic belongs in jail, and I'm not going to give some kid 14 years
Oh gosh.
because he relapsed
Right.
and he got a sanction written on him,
Right.
and it was a violation of protocol of some judicial system. You know
So
what I mean? So
so are you, yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of people, a lot of, I gotta, give me 1 second.
sure.
Um, I think, you know, people fall through the cracks that way. Don't you
Hmm.
think, Tomas?
Absolutely. You
And
know.
then, and that wouldn't necessarily, so what is the percentage of the people that we've lost to long-term incarceration, which will change them change them as people,
Uh-huh.
right? We don't know if for the good or for the better,
Hmm.
or not. But we've lost. Some people fall through the cracks.
Yeah, and you know, my story is a testament to it. You know, I could tell you about all this glorifying stuff, but what I more want to tell you about is my history of what being incarcerated and what recovery and incarceration did for me. Now, see, the first time I went into prison, I was a cannonball. You know, I, I paroled. I'm mandatory release date from the hole. You know, trying to be a tough guy, get stripes and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Second time, I did nothing but drugs and weightlifted and drank and lied to my wife and got out and did the same thing, caught another case, you know, and went back.
Mm-hmm.
But the third time, I had an opportunity to go to this place. You know, I was sitting there in the day room, and our former governor Ritter comes up on the TV. And you know, I'm a hustler by nature, and I'm trying to figure out some way, some program, some whatever, you know, to get out to the streets, whatever. And I'm sitting there looking up at this thing, and I see him talking about 5,000 in the programs,
Mm-hmm.
5,000 on parole and 5,000 off if you fit this protocol of what they call write-ups and Qurans. So you get 3 Qurans as one write-up, and you can't have any of those within a time span. And I just got in, so I haven't even I haven't even greased the wheels yet to start, you know,
Okay.
get thrown in the hole and get into fights and tattoos and
Mm-hmm.
everything that gets involved, you know, that you end up getting involved with in there. So I'm like, hey, I go to my case manager and he goes, what do you, he's a old guy from Pueblo, you know, Chicano guy, and he goes, what do you want, Tomas? I go, well, I want to get I want to get in that Cheyenne Mountain program. And he knew parole was coming up in the next couple weeks,
Uh-huh.
you know, a couple weeks or so, and he says, he goes, man, he goes, you always got something because like prior to that, I was telling him I wanted to get in a halfway house, and he
Mm-hmm.
made a joke. He was like, "Man, you haven't had a job since Eazy-E had his first record." It's like, go back to your cell. You're not. I'm not putting you in community corrections. What job experience you got? You're a hustler. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to set you up for that. So you know, he was laughed about that for a second. And he asked me. He goes, "Hey, um, so why do you really want to do this, Tomas?" And I go, "Man, you know I'm a drug addict. You know I'm a hard hitter. Maybe let's try something different."
Mm.
And are you serious? I go, yeah, man, I want to get back to my wife. I want to get back to my kid. You know, I don't want to be stuck in here. And the same things that I do, I'm going to end up being in the hole again. And I'm going to end up doing all this stuff. I'm like, man, I just saw this thing about Ritter and all that stuff in the Cheyenne Mountain. I figured, why not me?
Yeah.
He goes, you know what, Tomas? He goes, okay. Give me a few things. He goes, I'll see you at parole. We'll see. You want to put your money where your mouth is. So I went to the parole hearing, and that's kind of a protocol thing. You go through the whole situation, and then the next morning, I'm getting called over the intercom to pack my stuff.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
in Cheyenne Mountain overnight. I get to Cheyenne Mountain, and it wasn't what the brochure said.
Oh.
Yeah, you got guys lumped up. It's gangbanger capital.
Oh wow.
I mean, it's a private prison. God, I'm not going to strip them down because they gave me some recovery. But yeah, you got a point system in prison. So you got guys that got like 3 DUIs that got like 4 points, with guys that got 60 points, 30 points that have been doing 20 years or 10 years that are gang members, and they all stuck in one.
Oh,
so you know what I mean? And then you got 8-man to 12-man cells, and you got like 2 white supremacists, 4 Bloods, 2 Crips, and a guy that believes in Jesus.
Oh,
in the same thing. And this is not county jail. These guys came from Lyman, Buena Vista, Ordway, Crowley, wherever, and they in this place, and you sticking them in this room, and then you're going to tell them that they got to go do recovery services. So one day the warden gets an idea, right? And he says, he's going to grab all the people that's got a little bit of clout in the place. Now, let me clarify something. I was never a shot caller in there because, the affiliation that I had wasn't a big Colorado brand, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It was a motorcycle club that, it's huge in Denver now, but back then when I first started out here, it was a California thing that came out this way.
Mm-hmm.
And, I got my cred because, unfortunately, I've had a lot of family members that have been in the prison system, and at one time when I was incarcerated, we had 13 of us in there.
Mm-hmm.
So, hanging around with the old timers and all that stuff gave me respect and clout. I was really, when I got invited to that room, I was really kind of like, the lowest man on the totem pole, when you're talking about politics in prison. So when I walked into that room, the warden was basically straight up like this. He said, now I know you guys ain't going to stop doing what you're doing. I can't stop the drugs. I can't stop the alcohol. I can't stop the tattoos and whatever you guys get into here. He goes, but what I need to get is participation. Everybody looked at each other, and these are seasoned vets, and they're like, man, warden's got us here by the guard. He thought he was cool. He had waters and food and all that kind of stuff, and nobody was eating. And they're like, man, in prison politics, you ain't gonna be the first one to go over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there ain't nobody working with the warden, this and that. So there was a big meeting after he goes, I just need you guys to be my front leaders, and we'll just see where it goes, And it was an ingenious move when I think back about it. At first, I thought he just wanted numbers and, he wanted to paint this picture for the state. But what he did is he got us talking about it. So we went out to the yard, It's crazy. It's its own world,
It's a psychological,
like when the Hollies burnt down, when the Holly Park burnt down, the shopping center area, it already got to the prison system. We had a big, every yard had a meeting because that's blood territory, and they thought a Crip might have started the fire. So, there was going to be a war there anyway. Now this warden's got all these different sets and creeds in this thing, and he's talking about leadership roles to be in a TC community, so they on the yard.
Wow.
And there's another conversation, and I'm just kind of sitting there because I got brought into this situation. I don't even know who volunteered my name to this whole situation, you know what I mean?
Wow.
But I'm sitting in this thing. First I started as, like a pod coordinator or something. I ended up getting the recovery bug. I ended up being the facility manager. I ended up running the whole program for the whole shot.
Wow.
So with that being said, for that, there's a unit, for that unit, watching over, couple hundred guys, upwards to almost 3. So I'm over there doing this whole situation, and I didn't know what that warden did was he planted a seed.
Oh, man.
And that's that approach for the incarceration that nobody really knows about.
Yeah.
you can't. It might not happen right there, man. But if you plant that seed, you know, you get a little bit of you. God's got a way
Uh,
of watering that
oh
thing.
my goodness, Tomas, hallelujah. I am so glad you said that because there are people out there that in every, I got another one if you want it.
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Um, that have, that have tried interventions there and they didn't necessarily go the way they wanted them to. There's people that have, um, have worked with somebody and it didn't take. But the idea of planting that seed
Mm-hmm.
and then once that seed is planted, then God has a way, like you say.
Yeah. So with that whole situation, that was just the tip of the iceberg. So I think that I'm going to get out early, right? Because this is 5,000 in and all this stuff. I'm going to get some credit. Now I end up doing my whole time.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I get out on parole, and 2.5 months on parole, I get federally indicted. So I'm all over the news. I'm embarrassing my mother again. This and that. The feds, ATF, come and kick down my door. This and that. So the crime that I committed, I was on a high-speed chase. I got away from the cops. I tried to report my car stolen. Long story short, I left one of the weapons that I had in the car. I got 2 years for evading and eluding, and they dropped a gun charge. And everybody knows when they drop a gun charge in state, who's going to pick it up? The feds. But the problem was, it was a part of a national indictment for the organization that I was with the biker chapter that I was with. So I ended up I ended up looking at a lot of time in a courtroom that I'd never been in because that whole process is totally different.
Yeah.
I'm no longer the seasoned guy with my family members that have been, through years and years of Colorado state stuff. Now I'm in the federal limelight where only one of my uncles have been in the craziness of that. So, the numbers of sentencing is different, guidelines, the whole shot. So, I got to go to bond, and I'm praying. So my whole name is Tomas Federico Emilio Hernandez. So, with that being said, I'm always put in a cell. My first cell, I always started with a paisa, which paisa is a whatever Latin national, you're from Mexico, El Salvador, whatever, a Spanish speaking guy. And this guy's always got 10 Bibles and a shrine in there. So, I'm praying for the end of my life, man. My whole biker chapter, my chapter president ratted on me. Everybody that I thought I knew were my family was on this paper. And it's not like state because it says their full name and what they've said and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
And, I don't know what's going to happen. You don't have bond, you have bail, and you have to go to the bail hearing, which, somebody has to have collateral. And, how much I've done to my parents, I haven't proved nothing, after just doing 2 years. And then 2 months later,
Right.
I'm in the slammer again, with all that kind of stuff. Who's going to come bond me out? So I'm looking for programs.
Right.
I'm looking for all this stuff. So I go to the bond hearing, I got this ATF officer that I've seen on the paperwork that's going to come testify against me. That there's some people on that paper that want to speak their piece and keep me in where I'm at. You know what I mean? So I walk in the courtroom and I'm not used to seeing anybody there. I've seen my family in there a couple times, usually my wife, but I walk in and my little dad's sitting right there. And my little neighbors, one of the kids, a little gangbanger dude that always followed me around, just clinging on to me for those 2 months. He's wording at me, "You're lucky." What's up, homie? All this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm looking at him shackled up because I've had a long 2 months of dealing with a bunch of stuff. My wife dying inside again. I'm looking at 20 years federal, all this kind of stuff. It's a big, huge national indictment. It's on CNN, all this stuff. It's all the way from jaywalking to capital murder to, everything's in this whole thing. It's the RICO Act level. So all my prayers are sitting there, and then this ATF officer gets up and he starts talking about what type of murderer, homicidal maniac I am. And he starts telling this judge all this stuff that he's got wiretaps. But that ATF officer forgot to do one thing, and all is ugly against me. And a lot of stuff was lies. I'll take accountability on some of the stuff, but a lot of stuff was lies. The judge says, was any of this? He goes, I'm looking around in this paperwork. He goes, was I woken up? Was I taken out of session chamber to sign anything? Was I paged when I was on anywhere I was at? And the ATF officer put his head down. He goes, no, Your Honor. He goes, so none of this was transcribed or legal. Right.
I'm gonna hold on.
Okay.
This doesn't happen that often.
Okay.
We'll get back to that because I'm so into this.
Yeah. So with that whole situation, the judge goes, none of this stuff is transcribed, right? So the officer puts his head down and he says no. And he goes, so none of this is legal. He goes, so PSI report came in. Is there anybody in this courtroom going to stand up for Mr. Hernandez to post bond? And my father stood up.
Oh my goodness.
Man.
Oh.
Man.
Tomas.
Man. I looked at him like, no. I'm a F up. Don't bond me out, because I was getting loaded for those 2 months. I relapsed after that program.
I see.
You know what I mean? And he came and he goes, Your Honor, can I speak with my son real quick? And he leaned over to me and told me some unchoice words of my message because he had to put up his house, his collateral.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Bro.
So my dad's like, you mess up my house, boy. It's, God has nothing to do with this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
What I'm going to do to you.
Just every kind of father.
Exactly. So with that being said, I was bonded that day. And this is where the seed got planted, and I'll sum it up. I took the tools that I learned in Cheyenne Mountain. I got myself into programs. I met a guy named Job Fabiano, God rest his soul, that helped me understand what things were about, meetings, a whole lot of stuff, a lot of God shots, a lot of longer list of things. And I stretched this thing out for a year, and I was never late. I was never caught on a bad UA. I relapsed a million times in this thing, but then I got to sentencing. And I don't know if we have time because that's another story just like that judge. If you think that judge story was one thing.
Wow.
This is what happened with me was quick. And, you know what a fifth step is, right? Obviously.
Yes.
I heard about this thing called a fifth step on my sentencing the day before my sentencing. Because I wanted to find a model of something to speak true, honest, and get to the point. And get to myself I just wanted to be honest with the judge and take it where it is. Because I wasn't going to work with the cops. I'm not telling on 1,000 national 1%.
Yeah, I get you.
Biker members. I'm just not that guy. I'm going to take accountability. The gun was in the car. I'm going to plead guilty. So I took a plea bargain and it got capped. And I had a choice between to either go with the DA's recommendation or talk to the judge and go to the judge because that's different than state.
Mm-hmm.
I could just go on to the judge. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put it in. I got it capped at 58 months. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put it in the judge's hands. So I walk up and I do a fifth step under the podium. And I tell her about I didn't get it through all my life. I didn't get these certain things. I've had every opportunity. My parents are good people. It's not my wife's fault. It's not my daughter's fault. It's not my father's. It's not my mother's. It's not God's.
Wow.
I made bad choices through the drugs that I used, and I had a bunch of ways of doing things that I noticed in courtrooms. I've never said not guilty. I've said not guilty just to extend it out until I was eventually going to say guilty.
Mm-hmm.
To sit there,
Right.
see what kind of plea bargain I'm getting. But, it's like evolution. You got me from when I was young, when I first got arrested, to when I'm old. So like guilty to guilty. You know what I mean? You could kind of like see my voice change if you haven't recorded.
Yeah.
But when I got to that point, when I'm finally saying guilty to a federal judge for the last time in my life, thank you, God, for the last time that I've been sentenced. In a felony courtroom, I noticed that either the judge is going to talk good, and then he or she's going to slay you and tell you what you're going to get after that, or they're just going to talk straight bad about it and just go on.
Uh-huh.
So I say this whole thing from all my whole heart and soul. I prayed on it, foxhole prayer. God, if you just get me out of this, please.
Mm-hmm.
This, and that. I say my speech. The judge starts off with bad.
Oh.
I go, here we go.
Yeah.
I'm getting 58 months. And then she pulls out my paperwork from Cheyenne Mountain that I submitted to my attorney, and all the stuff that I did for that 11 months that I did with that work. See, I had multiple classes that I did here, and then 5, 6 stacked onto that. And I made myself a program of recovery now 3 years since, that day that I first got arrested in that high-speed chase. She said, Mr. Hernandez, I see that it's counterproductive to put you back into prison for all the stuff that you've done. She named off all the stuff that I said. And, I had the dinner before the night before. I had the cheesy party with my gang member friends the week before. I thought I was going to prison, and this woman's talking like maybe she's not going to put me in prison. Because, like,
Oh my
in a
goodness.
sentencing schedule with federal, it's kind of like that old multiplication table type of thing. You've got, violations. If you've been 0 arrests to like 7 over here, and I had like a million. I've been in like 18 facilities in my life. I've been arrested just 7 times in 1 month over different stuff. You know what I mean? And then it says a point system, and you go down to this thing, and that's how you find out how many months you had. Because originally I had 20 years.
Oh gosh.
So you know what I mean? I had multiple months,
Right.
but then I got up to the 58. So there's no way in this little bracket area where it's going to show you where you've been in probation, only if it's the discretion of the judge. This judge looked at me, and she said, I deem it counterproductive to put you back in prison for what you've done for the last 3 years. Mr. Hernandez, you should think about getting in this field, and I wish more people would put their heart on the line and talk to me straight up in my courtrooms with action behind it. Mr. Hernandez, you are free to go on 3-year supervised release, take his ankle monitor off, and good luck to you, sir.
Oh my goodness.
Man,
That's
I walked out of that place with 2 ankle monitors. I'm on ISP parole. I'm looking at a federal indictment on national level. My mom's embarrassed to go to the grocery store. My kid's crying the day before, saying that daddy's going to be gone because she grew up in the prison system with me, going to every different place to visit me on weekends. I got all this stuff. And the first time I ever did recovery in incarceration, it worked. It really worked, even though I had relapses in it. It worked.
That's that seed again, dude.
Exactly. So that's what I do today. So what if they relapse? We're going to keep on that road, and we're going to plant that seed, and we're going to water it because it's going to work.
Amen. I get it. I get it. And I knew, and I'm so happy I got to hear this story because, we have a saying. We have a saying in recovery: we don't shoot our wounded. But that is like nothing compared to hearing this story, because you lived it, and you're proof, and you're living proof that you're the reason. You're the reason. And do you ever get to talk to that judge again?
I've been wanting to do that. I got a friend from a documentary. She's going to reach out for him. A couple of things. Reach out to her.
Oh my goodness, you got to.
Yeah, and I got to get down that road. It's on my to-do list.
I'm gonna let this go to a song. This one time we're gonna come right back. But we'll talk about that. We're gonna go to this is Brother, and then we're gonna get back. This has just been an incredibly compelling night of I don't know. It's just been a story that I needed to hear. And we're going to talk more about it when we come back with Mr. Tomas Hernandez, my special guest on Conscious Conversations, right here on KUHSdenver.com. We'll be back. This is a song entitled Brother. We started it once, but you know what? I always reserve the right when we are on a roll and we're talking about something this important, we go. We'll be right back. When we're clear on radio. Oh my gosh, dude, I can't thank you enough for your honesty but I gotta say, man, I'm overwhelmed. It's Eva says, I appreciate your honesty, Mr. Hernandez.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening.
And I agree. I mean, it's just like it blows me away
Mhm.
because we were just talking to that judge. You
Yeah,
you got to do that.
I do, and you know, man,
Nobody steps out like that, dude. And now, and when somebody did, and they were right because they assessed the situation, and they looked at a person, and they looked at the whole thing instead of doing what's easy, instead of doing what anybody else would do. They looked at it as they say, this is a human being. Look at this story. This is a person. What can I do? This person has showed me something that if I look between the lines,
mhm.
and they were right, Tomas.
Yeah, and when I got out of Cheyenne Mountain, I still wanted to be in my biker chapter. I still wanted to do things. You know, that that scare into federal prison wasn't just the fact of me being in prison. There's a pinnacle thing that happened during that time, and I'm gonna keep this dude's name out of my mouth on a national program or international program. But there was a certain general, a certain third general of a known international known cartel from Mexico being incarcerated at the same federal building I was at, and he was paying $2 million to get himself doing his time in Mexico. And and the phones were up on top of this pod that I was in, right? And um, I got 10 minutes talking to my wife on the phone, this, and that, and the guys had a couple conversations with me because we're the same race, and I could sit right by the tables there. They got a different car system type of things, it goes by state and race, and if you're a Mexican national or American Chicano or whatever, but we all kind of sit in the same line of things, and he was a cell next door, so he had some pretty good English, and he talked with me, but I didn't want to get too far involved with him because he's something else, totally different
Mm-hmm.
than what State's got. He's at a level that's beyond. This guy put the Mexican cell phone king in position,
Mm-hmm.
helped the Mexican president get the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
This guy is the real McCoy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking down, and I always noticed he's always looking at this picture. So one time I got ballsy enough to walk by, and I looked at it, and it was his family, his daughter and his wife, and stuff like that. And the first time I got to see this man in the snap of a finger could take out your whole life, your whole existence. I hung up that phone, and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do, man? I'm in a big resentment area. I want to get revenge for all these people that's on this list and all this stuff. And I look down and I see this guy, and he pulls out of his shirt, and he's sitting there doing some paperwork, and he pulls out a cross, and he kisses it, and he does a prayer, and he reaches up and pulls his glasses down, kisses his hand, and puts it on the damn picture. And at that point, I was like, wait a minute, man, this is the biggest OG gangster I've ever seen in my life. And that man is just as scared as me.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm like, this guy that could run a country is just as scared as I am right now. He got the same fear as I got.
Mm-hmm.
How's this possible?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you how it's possible. It's mistakes. And then my conscience got on me and it started growing. It's be like, man, am I going to submit to this for the rest of my life? I ain't got $2 million. I probably will never see $2 million in one place in my life,
Mm-hmm.
let alone to be able to just go somewhere else.
Mm.
I'm not going to tell and mess up my integrity and start putting people in jail.
Right. Oh goodness.
You know what I mean?
No.
I'm going to have to ride this out.
Yeah.
But and at the time I was still torn with God, and I go, because I have a thing about somebody that surrenders just for the sake of jail instead of the sake of God. I'm not going to be that guy. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
So at that point is when you talked about at the beginning of this program, surrender. That's the first time I finally surrendered. And I told God, I was like, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing. Help me, man. You say that you got my back. I'm here. Help me.
Mm.
This is the worst time of my whole life.
Mm.
I'm looking at 20 years. I'm in my 30s. I got no job experience. I ain't got nothing. I barely got my family. You know,
Yeah, that's a
I got,
jumping off place,
yeah,
as
and I
we
got,
talk.
the ones that I thought were my family are ratting on me,
Right.
you know.
It's
And not to
betrayal.
disrespect that chapter, there's a lot of friends that I call friends today, and there was only a certain individuals that's not even tagged that, because gang members do what gang members do, and I still got love for whatever you're doing. Is if you that's what you feel that you are as a respected man, a man, woman, whatever, that's what you do. You know what I mean? But that's not for me no more. But at the same time, that surrender right there, knowing that you in the abyss. How could I not believe in God at that point?
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and especially when somebody, the least that you could expect
Mhm.
goes out on a limb and sees something that's there's something divinely planned there.
Mhm.
It's God takes all these things.
Mhm.
It's like, and I hate to, I hope this doesn't make you uncomfortable, but I go back to the story of Joseph, and how so many bad things happened to him, and in the end, he says, God meant it all for good. And so when all these things in your whole life story and all these things, I don't know if you look at it this way,
Mhm.
but for that moment, when that seed was planted back then, and you asked for that special uh, transfer to Cheyenne, and then even though it wasn't what you expected, and you couldn't see the big picture, but God could, and now you've got a whole new path.
Yeah, and I'm still in that way. I don't know what's going to happen next. You know, and it's not about the building that I'm in or the house that I'm in or wherever I'm going to be helping people. I just know that's one thing that I made the deal with God that I'm going to do. Is whatever stance that I'm in. Like, you mentioned, let's talk about one thing that somebody that's resilient in this game, in this industry, like Tanya Wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
That woman has had more ups and downs and things, and now has another building, and she continues to help people. She continues to go forward, and she continues to do things. You know what I mean? And that's an inspiring situation to whatever it is, because also at the end of the day, it's about helping people, man. It's about giving back. And that's my gift of community service. And that's what I teach my guys. You can't just go get a job and get some recovery and call it a push and destroy and forget about the community you destroy,
Yeah. Yeah.
the hearts of your families that you destroy. We're gonna learn a different way, and you can use chakras and rocks and all that kind of stuff. But that I can't. That's what got me in that situation.
Yeah.
Was rocks. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
I can't pray to the crystals and rocks that got me there. I'm a meth head. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? Trying to make light of it, but anyway.
Well, I understand. I mean, and the thing about it is we can look back on things and with a certain amount. We're going to radio. And that's a great way to come back in. Oh, we got a commercial. Be right with you. One commercial. But we can, I'm knocked off my game a little bit tonight because which feels good to me because I haven't this blowing me away tonight because it's just so compelling to hear a story and have that story have and I'm in the happy ending part of that story. And right now, and it makes me feel so honored and privileged to be sitting here with you tonight and talking about that judge, that seed, that surrender, and what you do now. Of course, you relate to these guys because what are they going to say to you? And but what you can say to them is just what you said. I want to try something different.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back now, and I was just telling Tomas that, I'm thrown off my game a little bit tonight, and it's in an extraordinarily good way. Um, this has been an incredibly compelling show. The the gift and sacrifice of my friend Tomas Hernandez to be on this show tonight and to be so incredibly honest with his story. We call it in the recovery community experience, strength, and hope, and do not make light of that because that's what it is. I mean, we've heard his experience, and to have the strength to respond to a seed that was planted, a gift, if you will, that was given through a judge that could look at a situation on a human level rather than just a numbers level, and then respond with hope of a future. Yeah, I mean, there's a future with your fiance, and there's, I mean, a future for with helping
I haven't
others.
popped the question yet, but yeah, she's gonna be.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
well, oh, dude, man,
I haven't told any of
not
the family yet,
sweating
but
that, man. I mean, I put my foot in my mouth before, but
we're good.
and I'm
We're
known
good.
for that. But anyway, but
She
and
knows
then
I
being
am.
able to um, help
Yeah.
in a number of different ways. I mean, like you've got so much experience to say, well, I mean, for a guy like me, I want to help and I want to shout the good news of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and in my own way, that's what I'm doing. That's my mission. But then what if a person needs sober living, if a person needs a halfway house, if a person needs 30-day rehab, or all these things. How do you make that? Um, I mean, obviously, by meeting them where they're at,
Yeah.
where to start. But um, do you have like a sense, Tomas, of when
Well,
somebody
I've
might
also
be getting it?
I've also had the opportunity and the blessing to work for a lot of reputable, well-known organizations through this last 4.5 years. I mean, everybody was wondering why I was jumping from place to place. I mean, I worked for companies in Florida, LA, Colorado as a, because I told you I had a lot of hustle and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I became a outreach and business development guy. So, I'm the mouthpiece drawing the people in there. And that's how I got in the industry, making these guys, you know, basically, let's just say it, money to get people in there. So I learned a lot of the infrastructure on how things work and work in intake and work with some great people like Marlis Bowdish and a couple. Uh, Man, there's a lot of people, the good people in there that Ben Court, a few people that have taught me how to be a marketer, taught me how to be an intake person. So, with that also, I use a lot of great third party vendors.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the courtrooms have a good assessment after we do a release and consent of what they've done. So their courtrooms make their decision on what level. I mean, I can make a recommendation from experience, but the courtrooms have their own process in place. If a person has come from a reputable, different recovery or treatment organization in the state or in the nation, we also take heed to what they have to say, and we have a release and consent to talk to them about that situation. So it's not just like I have a wink and a gleam in my eye to do it, because
Right.
it's a collective effort. You
Sure.
also have families, husband, wives, girlfriends, daughters, whatever, sons involved, and you've got to be able to collectively figure out what this person is up to, and you got to really watch the situation. So sometimes you may think this person is on methamphetamine or a stimulant, and actually they have an eating disorder.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You also got to look at the fact that what different kind of dual diagnosis of treatment that person needs.
Absolutely.
And really look at that situation, because you might just think, it's just depression. They just got to talk about it and get it out. Nah, man, they could be borderline schizophrenic,
Right. Right.
PTSD, all different kinds of stuff. And who am I to diagnose that? But I want to give the recommendation and put that thing out there that this person maybe doesn't need this level of care because, what I like to call it is street recovery. I meet you where you're at. So that kind of puts you in a area that you're ready to actually take some initiative to put your life together and go get a job and get some God or some whatever type of spiritual path that you want to do, but pick something besides yourself
Mm-hmm.
and get you know what I mean?
Yes.
And get in the game and do that, So, we really, really get ourselves involved. And like I said, it's not a one-stop shop for a place. I'm not a fit for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
My type of style is not a fit for everybody. So, there is a lot of shout out to a lot of great organizations in the United States. And then Colorado has a great community of treatment and recovery that you can find what works for you.
And I encourage people to if you think you have a problem or if you think you know somebody that needs help, just make a call. It's good to get. It's just a call. Find out where the help might be available because um, you know uh, Tomas's services are out there. Tribe Recovery Services, which includes sober living and reentry. Soon to be Tribe Industries as well, which will be a sub company of this.
Yeah, so Tribe Industries is going to be a workforce.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start it with labor. So my program is a male program. I don't have a co-ed program. I'm just like a 12-stepper. I have nothing offer past a brother and sister in recovery type of situation for the female population. I'm not a female and I don't get it. And my girlfriend will contest to that on a daily basis that I don't get it. So I keep with the males.
Well,
And the industry's type of situation is going to be this is also it's going to be open co-ed at some point to where because you don't have a sect or creed on work
right.
and it's going to be a labor type of situation where we're going to be provide labor and we're going to be trying to be the connecting factor like it's have to hire situation to get you into the community and working in a career job that you can actually pay your rent and you can get your stuff going. So what we're going to start with starting this week that I just bought a truck.
Nice.
2 weeks ago. I'm getting that thing fixed up and gathering some tools together. We're going to start bidding on some construction cleanup. And I got 3 guys that I'm going to interview this week. I'm doing some remodels and get some money going that way. Start bidding on some snow removal stuff, some different stuff that we're going to get going and get that situation, Tribe Industries, going. So, I want to have that whole working end with it. And I've also, at the same time, to get back to Tribe Recovery Services, not get too far, I've also teamed up with a young lady that she's going to hold the licensure and everything like that. And we're going to make a memorandum of understanding. And then I'll have therapies available, but it's not going to be to the point of like a PHP or like another treatment center.
Right.
We're going to have that, an ILP will be available, but we'll have more, stuff that you need to get your life together. If you need your license, we're going to have DUI classes, relapse prevention, court services, MRT, stuff that you need for that type of population to get that going. It's not just,
sounds like a full menu of options.
Yeah, of course, something that's going to go with what you got in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't have a lot of pastels and promises and sunshine and frisbees in the park. My whole thing is a gorilla screaming in the dark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Looking for help. So my location is downtown Denver. My other one is right by the courthouses in Aurora. You know what I mean? So it's like my whole situation where your feet are at planted on that concrete, just like the Hornbuckle Foundation.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. That's bluesy. It's about all the blues community and the bike community and some of my friends from back home donated all that stuff to that house. It's about street recovery and what we got. No offense to any of the other organizations because they do great work, but equine therapy don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
In what I do,
mm-hmm.
But it fits for that program and for that purpose.
Right.
Massage and yoga might work for somewhere else.
Yeah.
But for my guys, if you want to go do that on your own, then go ahead. You know what I mean? I don't hold church in my building, but I promote prayer and meditation so you can find it on your own. What we talk about is we provide is a safe place that has a street recovery to put your life back together to actually get you functioning. And the biggest thing is get your hands out of your family's pockets, man. Learn how
Action.
to take care of yourself.
It's action, action, action.
Yeah.
It's like, and we in the rooms of recovery, we talk about the idea of a recovery being an action. It's about action. You can talk about, it's like and I'm speaking for myself, I talked about getting sober for a long time. I made a promise to get sober every day, and until you take the action and on doing something different, and you surrender, then you take the action to change your life. By taking that action, that sets something in motion, and these services that you're providing are giving those people the ability to take the action. And I'm just really um, I'm just really so thrilled with what you're doing, and it's I can't wait to stay in touch with you, and keep keep posted on all the things that you're doing. It's like the night goes by really fast.
It does.
And I'm going to have to say goodnight to my special guest, Tomas Hernandez, from Tribal Recovery Services. With all the things that he does and offers, he's also a part of the Hornbuckle Foundation. And I'm hoping to get Michael and his fiance. Are they married yet?
No, that's coming up. This is the big next week.
Oh
So
man,
yeah,
yeah,
we got a whole lot of hornbuckle going on
that's
for
good.
the next 7 days, and it's
That'll be
great,
great.
man. They're a great couple, and they're gonna be, yes, they're two special people. And
Well, I'm gonna reach out and congratulate them, and then hopefully hook up with them maybe down the line when they may be able to come on and join me. I can't thank you enough for your honesty. I was hoping to have you come on and tell a little bit about your story, but I didn't realize what a compelling and unbelievable. It's talk about a metamorphosis, dude. I mean, it's like a rebirth of, and with the seed that we talked about and the surrender we talked about, and the ability of somebody to take a look at a situation in another way, and then the ability, as we talk about, for you to respond. Um, I mean, I don't care what you say, that's the Lord. And the Lord does work in mysterious ways. And he's got big plans for what you're doing, on all the help that you're it's like your mother said, you're doing God's work.
trying to do my best. But thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me on here, man. It's been a blessing to be on here twice. Yeah, everybody out, my friends on that's seeing this, you've got to get this summer to listen to this man playing jazz in the park. Something else. Something else. It's something that we enjoy. All my buddies, the cigar lords out there, we definitely come to make sure that when he's there, you get to watch that. You see him playing. You got to come see Steven play. Something else.
Well, this is my favorite. We're gonna go to music right now, and I'm gonna have a chance to walk Tomas out and get him on his way safely home, and then we'll be right back, and I'll sign off after that. This is Deja Vu by Dot Zero.
All right.
Dude, man, this is my favorite part. This is I get to say thank you and give you your parting gifts, because I don't think we had parting gifts the last time.
We didn't. We didn't.
Well, we have them this time. So you get your official Conscious Conversation mugs,
Okay.
and we found that, I mean, they started out to be coffee mugs,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of people that I give them to tell me that they're good for soup. So because they're
Nice.
so big.
Nice.
And then I didn't know if you had any RCDs or not.
I
So,
gotta check it out. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I can't thank you enough, man,
Right on, man. I
for
appreciate
a
it.
wonderful evening. I hope you'll. This is where I get to put you on the spot and say, I hope you'll do it again with me sometime.
I definitely will.
Sounds
Definitely
great,
will,
man.
All right,
What a
brother.
show, man.
All
Oh my
right.
gosh. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. Yeah, let Michael know when I definitely ran it by him. He'll definitely come by.
Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to him this week. And, I obviously he's got a little more on his mind this week. So at least I'll plant the seed. And, that's it. Thank you so much. All right. Love you, man. And I'm back. Had a chance to walk Tomas to the door, and he's hopefully safely on his way um, home. It's been a different show tonight, and it's been the kind of show, quite frankly, um, that I've dreamed of, because this is a show that well, it kind of broke the mold a little bit on what I expected, or not only that, but what I've always been hoping to do, and that is to get into a conversation, so honest, so, as we say, rigorously honest, so raw, to just heart to heart what a person has gone through, and what a person has been able to overcome in order to not only find sober living, a sober way of life, through all that Tomas had to go through, but also then finding with that life of gratitude, and finding within himself that his mission is to go out and serve and help others who are afflicted and struggling and hurting from this addiction. It's just really, it's really a story that it just brings it all home. I've had two guests in the last 2 weeks, um, and also with Slim, with Jammin' 105, um, just the idea of the human spirit and what the human spirit can overcome, and that with that seed planted, that people can find sobriety and find a purposeful life, um, a, a, a life that is filled with service, joy, and thanksgiving, love, and hope. Um, Very, very inspiring. Um, so my thanks to Tomas Hernandez from Tribe Recovery Services, Sober Living and Reentry, and also getting started this week with Tribe Industries. Uh, all the people that he mentioned are people that I've been very, very fortunate to be able to get to know within this recovery community. Um, Marlis Bowdish, and um, Tanya Wheeler, and so many of these other people. But um, it's an amazing community, community I'm proud to be a part of. And I'm going to sign it off here. Get ready to sign it off anyway. Also, wanted to mention it is 12 noon, not 12 noon, 12 midnight, and that allows me. I want to be the first one officially to say happy birthday to my soulmate, the love of my life, Sandra Watts. Happy birthday, Sandra. Uh, it's. I hope you have the most wonderful birthday ever. So, from my heart and my soul to you, I love you with all my heart and soul. Happy birthday, love of my life and my true soulmate. Well, we've got about 50 seconds before we're going to go ahead and sign off. Again, what a night. What a night it's been. This has been a show that has been much different than I expected. But you know what? That's one of the beauties of a sober life. Living sober, you find that if you give it to the Lord will take that and make it something unbelievably special. And when you ask for something from the Lord and you wait with hope and patience, you'll find that what you get is much better than you ever dreamed. Well, it has been an incredible night on Conscious Conversations. A night that I'll never forget, to be quite honest with you. I'd like to thank my special guest, Mr. Tomas Hernandez. I was going to call him Thomas, but he corrected me and told me the reason behind that. So Tomas Hernandez with Tribe Recovery Services, Sober Living and Reentry, Tribe Industries, a person that has been talking recovery all night long and telling us his story, which has been more than compelling indeed. A story that is, well, just unbelievable, but has ended up with recovery and a purposeful life in serving others, doing God's work, as his mother said. Thank you, Tomas. What a night. Well, next week on Conscious Conversations, I've got another special guest that you're going to want to check out. I'm going to let it be a surprise to you. I'll send out word on Facebook this week. I'd like to thank all of the people that that gave us comments and feedback on live Facebook tonight. Really made us feel good and gave us a chance to interact with you out there that are listening. It really warms our heart to get a chance to see who's listening and what y'all have to say. Once again, I get a chance to say a special shout out to my soulmate, the love of my life. Happy birthday, Sandra. It is officially your birthday, January 15th, 2018. Have a great birthday. I can't wait to be part of it. I'm asking for worldwide prayer for healing for people, so many people that are dealing with debilitating health issues, such as Ronnie and Rich and Stephanie and Scott. The healing presence of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who can make the body whole and healed. Those who are battling addiction, so many of us that need people that will be like Tomas, and we don't shoot our wounded. We realize that at some point, some way, somehow, that seed may have been planted and it will be watered by our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and recovery can be found. So we stick with them through thick and thin until maybe someday they find the sobriety that we're enjoying this very moment. Well, where is Dotsero next week? Dotsero is going to be at Live at Jack's on Friday night. That is Friday night, January 19th, 9:30 p.m. And then we'll be doing a private party for African American Youth Leadership Conference in Colorado Springs. That's coming up on Saturday night, the 20th. And want to make sure that you know that Dotsero is doing our annual Dinner with Dotsero on Valentine's Day evening at Live at Jack's in downtown Denver. Go to liveatjacks.com, liveatjacks.com, or .seroband.com and find out how you can get tickets to see Dotsero, Will Alston, and have dinner with Dotsero and your Valentine on Valentine's Day evening 2018. And here's our benediction for this evening. May the Lord Jesus Christ himself and God our Father, who loved us and by his grace gave us eternal encouragement and good hope, encourage your hearts and strengthen you in every good deed and word. Amen. And in the words of Charles Dickens, from his famous story that is in many ways my own story, a story of redemption and reclamation, God bless us, everyone. For Conscious Conversations, I'm Stephen Ray Watts. Good night. And I'm going to say good night on Facebook as well. Thank you all for so much for being a part of the show tonight. What a night it has been. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have and been inspired as much as I have been inspired tonight. Thank you. We'll see you next week.